Turning memory to strength, the world is taking a moment to remember the lives lost to the Holocaust more than 75 years ago. We'd like to welcome Ilene Turbow, co-chair of the Remember program for the Charleston Jewish Federation. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Very important time of year. January is also a very important time when remembering the Holocaust, but we're remembering the Holocaust as it refers to Yom HaShoah. Maybe you can tell our audience more about what that means.
Well, Yom HaShoah is the commemoration of the lives lost during the Holocaust, the 6 million Jews, the 5 million others. And it is Jewish tradition to say the names aloud and to remember so that we don't ever forget that this can happen.
Absolutely.
And our commemoration this year is Sunday, 2 o'clock at Marion Square, where we will have speakers, we will have music, we will actually have one of the violins from the Violins of Hope performance, and we will read the names of those people that had connections to families in Charleston.
Can we talk a little bit about that? Do you know how many connections there are? Because what I think many people don't realize is Charleston historically has been home to many Jews from hundreds of years ago.
From hundreds of years ago.
So there's a very strong core community here with a lot of history.
And many of the names are of people who have deceased, who are no longer with us. You probably realize that a lot of the living survivors are well into their 80s and 90s now. So this year, turning memory into strength is really an intergenerational program to try to show the importance of telling the story through the generations and making that impact on an ongoing basis. So we do have people here in Charleston who are going to tell their story as they were told from their parents, their grandparents, and hopefully keeping that going.
So for a community to still have those treasures still with us, still on this earth with us, and to hear from their lips, I would imagine is an incredibly profound experience.
Incredibly profound. Many of the survivors now are very elderly, and it's difficult for them to make events or speak. We do have a couple that when they can, they still go out and speak. The Jewish Federation, who I'm representing, and the Remember program, which is part of it, our mission is to educate and to bring as much experiential effort to people out in the community as we can. So we do have a speakers bureau. We have a Remember project, which is a cohort of high school students that we do every year to teach them about the Holocaust, but pushing that even further into talking about stamping out hate and racism and genocide.
So it really goes beyond the Holocaust, that being the legacy for a better future that we're all responsible for creating for each other and for ourselves.
Exactly.
For you yourself, have you been able to trace any familial ties to that part of the world during that time?
You know, I am an unusual case. My Jewish ancestors came to this country long before the Holocaust. So to my knowledge, we don't have anyone who was lost. But that's unusual, and it's also probably not likely. It's just what we know in terms of my family.
Yeah, those family trees can go far-reaching beyond what you can even trace back to, as we know. Not everything is documented, and really, when you think about all the people who perished during that time, and just how many links that there are, chances are you absolutely are related to somebody or know someone who was in some way affected.
And I know many people here who were affected.
Absolutely.
And you know, we still have 5 or 6 living survivors here in Charleston. And so, as you said earlier, just having the ability to touch base with them and realize what they went through. You know, and for many survivors these days, what's happening in the Ukraine is just triggering memories of what has happened in the past. So our commemoration on Sunday takes on even deeper meaning when we realize what's going on in the world today.
I appreciate you mentioning that, because I don't think we can talk about the Holocaust without mentioning what's happening in Ukraine for many people who are also finding that to be a genocide of sorts. I think scholars and others can have their discussions, politicians and so forth, but I think for the families who are truly affected by it, there is relatability.
Very, very, very much. Ukraine had the largest Jewish population in Europe, and so many of them were elderly. And so for some of them, this is just triggering memories that should never be triggered.
Absolutely. I want to thank you so much, Ilene, for joining us. And of course, we're going to share that information with our viewers as to how you can participate this Sunday at Marion Square. We'll be right back.